Lieutenant Jack Howard stared through the viewport of the UES Discovery as the massive alien ship appeared near Jupiter. It seemed to materialize from nowhere, dwarfing their small research vessel. Next to him, Dr. Olivia Bennett gasped. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" she whispered, her eyes wide. Jack nodded slowly, his military training barely keeping his shock in check. "I'm seeing it. Not sure I'm believing it." They had been on a routine survey mission to Europa, collecting mineral samples and mapping subsurface, oceans. Nothing in their training had prepared them for first contact with an alien species. Captain George Rivers stepped onto the bridge, his face pale. "All stations, report status, and someone tell me what the hell that thing is." "Unknown vessel, sir," the communications officer said. It's sending us a message." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being unlike anything they had ever seen. It had 6 limbs, an elongated head with multiple eyes arranged in a circle, and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. When it spoke, the ship's computer struggled to translate. "People of Earth," the being said after several seconds of delay. "We are the collective. We have been observing your world for some time. We wish to extend an invitation to join our galactic community." In the days that followed, Earth's government scrambled to form a response. Jack and Olivia found themselves unexpectedly reassigned from their research mission to a hastily assembled diplomatic team. With their first-hand experience of the initial contact, they were valuable assets despite their lack of diplomatic training. Ambassador Diane Miller, a seasoned negotiator with 20 years in international relations, led the team. As they prepared to board the alien vessel, she pulled Jack and Olivia aside. "You two stick close to me," she said firmly. "Jack, I need your military perspective on anything that might be a threat. Olivia, your scientific insights will be crucial. These beings may be friendly, but we're not taking any chances." The shuttle ride to the alien ship was tense and silent. When they arrived, they were greeted by a delegation of different species. The diversity was stunning. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some had exoskeletons, others fur or scales or something like living crystal. A tall, slender being with blue-gray skin stepped forward. "I am Coordinator Xel of the Vex. Welcome aboard the Harmony. We are pleased to meet the first official representatives of Earth." As they were led through the ship, Jack noticed something odd. Many of the aliens seemed fascinated by the humans, but some kept their distance. One particularly intimidating species, large reptilian beings with armored skin that Xel introduced as the Krell, watched them with what Jack could only interpret as wariness. The tour ended in a vast chamber where representatives from dozens of species gathered. The humans were introduced one by one. When Ambassador Miller mentioned that they came from Earth, with its varied climates ranging from Arctic to tropical, its oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, and its surface gravity of 9.8 meters per second squared, something strange happened. The Krell delegation abruptly stood and left the chamber without explanation. Jack leaned toward Olivia. "Did we say something wrong?" She shrugged slightly, equally confused. Coordinator Xel approached them, his multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly. "Please forgive the Krell. They are surprised by your world's parameters." "Surprised, Ambassador?" Miller asked. "Is there something unusual about Earth?" Xel seemed uncomfortable. "In our classification system, your planet would be considered how do I translate this properly? A Class 5 death world." The human delegation exchanged puzzled looks. "A what?" Jack asked. "A death world," Xel repeated. "A planet with environmental conditions so harsh that most spacefaring species could not survive there unprotected. High gravity, extreme temperature, variations, aggressive flora and fauna, intense radiation from your sun. These conditions are quite rare in habitable worlds." Olivia frowned. "But Earth is perfectly hospitable to us." "Precisely," Xel said, his voice dropping lower. "That is what makes you remarkable." The diplomatic meetings continued for days. The humans learned about the Collective, a loose alliance of over 300 species from across the galaxy. They shared technology, culture, and maintained peace through mutual cooperation. Earth was being offered provisional membership, with full status possible after an evaluation period. Throughout the negotiations, Jack noticed the strange reactions their presence caused. When Olivia mentioned casually that she had once broken her leg hiking but had fully recovered in 6 weeks, a gasping sound came from several aliens nearby. When Jack demonstrated his ability to do push-ups, the gravity on the ship being slightly lower than Earth's, several observers left the room. One evening, as they returned to their assigned quarters, a Vex scientist approached them hesitantly. "Pardon my directness," the alien said, "but I am curious about your species' physical structure. May I examine your teeth, Lieutenant Howard?" Jack glanced at Olivia, who nodded encouragingly. Sure," he said and opened his mouth. The scientist leaned forward, then suddenly jerked back. "Remarkable. You have both grinding molars and tearing canines. You are omnivores." "Yes," Jack said slowly. "Most humans eat both plants and meat." The Vex scientist backed away. "Fascinating. Truly fascinating. Thank you for the demonstration." As the alien hurried away, Jack turned to Olivia. "What was that about?" "I think," Olivia said thoughtfully, "we might be scarier than we realize." Their suspicions were confirmed the next day, when they accessed the collective's database on planetary classifications. Earth's gravity was 30% higher than most inhabited worlds. Its atmospheric pressure was double the galactic average for civilized planets. Its temperature range was considered extreme, its weather patterns violent, and its biological diversity off the charts. "They think we're monsters," Jack said, looking at the data. "They think we're some kind of super beings because we evolved on a world that would kill most of them." Olivia nodded slowly. "And the funny thing is, by their standards, we are." As they prepared to return to Earth with the proposed membership terms, Jack watched the stars through a viewport. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. Not only were they not alone, but they were considered dangerous simply because of where they came from. They had no idea how right the aliens were to be afraid. 6 months passed since Earth joined the Galactic Collective. Jack Howard and Olivia Bennett now lived on Nexus Station, a massive space habitat that served as the main diplomatic hub for hundreds of alien species. Their living quarters were bigger than those given to other diplomats. The air was pumped with extra oxygen. The artificial gravity was set higher than anywhere else on the station. These special accommodations only reinforced what they had learned about their status as Deathworlders. Jack stared out the viewport at the swirl of stars beyond. "I still can't get used to how they look at us," he said. Olivia nodded as she reviewed data on her tablet. "Like we're going to break something or someone just by being here." Their new life had settled into a routine. Jack served as security advisor to the human diplomatic team. Olivia worked with alien scientists to exchange knowledge. They were adapting well, though they often laughed about the whispers that followed them through the station's corridors. The door chimed. Ambassador Diane Miller entered, her face serious. "We have a problem," she said without greeting. "There's been another assassination." Jack straightened. "Who?" "Representative Karn of the Luminar. Third collective official killed in 2 weeks. The Security Council is meeting in an hour, and they've requested your presence." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Mine? Why?" "Because they're scared," Miller said simply, "and they think humans might be able to help." An hour later, Jack sat in the Security Council chamber. Representatives from 12 species sat around a large table. At its head was Commander Zorn, a Tritonian with gray-green skin and 4 arms. His reputation as a ruthless and effective security chief was known throughout the station. "The situation is grave," Zorn began. 3 high-level officials killed despite our best security measures. All evidence points to professional assassins. "The Shadow Syndicate," said a Vex representative, her voice clicking through the translator. Jack had heard rumors about the Syndicate, a criminal organization that operated across 17 star systems. They controlled black markets, smuggling routes, and employed the deadliest assassins in known space. What do we know about how they're getting onto the station? Jack asked. All eyes turned to him. Zorn's face showed surprise as if he hadn't expected the human to speak. They seem to be using some kind of advanced cloaking technology, Zorn replied. Our sensors detect nothing until it's too late. Jack nodded. And the method of assassination? Different each time, Zorn said. Poison for the first victim. Some kind of energy weapon for the second. The Luminar representative was killed by physical trauma. His crystalline body was shattered. Sounds like they're using different species for different jobs, Jack said, taking advantage of their natural abilities. Commander Zorn studied Jack with new interest. That is an astute observation, Lieutenant. Our analysts reached the same conclusion. The third assassination likely involved a Krell. Their strength could easily shatter a Luminar. Jack thought for a moment. We need intelligence. What if we infiltrate one of their gatherings? The room went silent. Then, surprisingly, Zorn laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Infiltrate? No officer has ever survived such an attempt. The Syndicate employs the Shrike as their elite assassins. They evolved on a mid-gravity world with natural toxins in their barbed limbs. One scratch means death. I'll do it, Jack said simply. The aliens exchanged glances. Zorn leaned forward. You? You're just a human. Exactly, Jack replied, not understanding why this made the Tritonian commander suddenly reconsider. After the meeting, Commander Zorn pulled Jack aside. Your offer was unexpected, he said. But perhaps it could work. Why the change of mind? Jack asked. Zorn's four hands moved in a gesture Jack couldn't interpret. Your species has certain advantages. You might survive where others would not. That night, Jack prepared for the mission. He wore civilian clothes with hidden armor underneath. A small camera was disguised as a shirt button. A stunner weapon was strapped to his ankle. Olivia helped him with final checks. I don't like this, she said. We still don't know enough about these aliens and their capabilities. That's why we're doing this, Jack replied. We need information. Olivia handed him a small device. This analyzes atmospheric composition. If you detect anything unusual, hold your breath. Your Deathworlder lungs can go without oxygen longer than most species can believe. Jack smiled. You're starting to sound like them. Maybe they have a point, Olivia said seriously. The more I study collective biological data, the more I realize we are different. What we consider normal, our endurance, healing, strength, is extraordinary to them. Commander Zorn met Jack at a service entrance to the lower levels of Nexus Station. These areas were officially off-limits, maintenance tunnels, waste, processing, and abandoned sections that had become lawless zones where station security rarely ventured. Our intelligence suggests a gathering of Syndicate operatives in Sector 17, Zorn said. Various criminal elements meet there to exchange information and take contracts. Your cover is that you're a maintenance worker. Do not engage. Do not attract. Attention. Just observe and record. Jack nodded. What's my extraction plan? Return the way you came. If you're not back in 3 hours, we'll consider you lost. With those comforting words, Jack descended into the underbelly of Nexus Station. The corridors grew dimmer and dirtier. Alien graffiti marked the walls. The air smelled strange, a mix of unfamiliar foods, unknown chemicals, and the distinct odors of dozens of species. He found Sector 17 by following a group of rough-looking aliens. They entered what appeared to be a bar or club. Dim lights pulsed. Strange music played. At least 15 different species mingled in the smoky room. Jack kept to the shadows, pretending to fix a control panel while observing the crowd. His translator picked up fragments of conversations, deals being made, information being sold, threats being exchanged. Then the room went quiet. 3 tall figures entered. They stood over 7 feet tall with thin, almost skeletal bodies. Their limbs ended in sharp barbs that dripped with a clear fluid. Their faces were hidden behind breathing masks. Shrike, whispered a nearby alien. The word rippled through the crowd. Even hardened criminals moved aside for these beings. Jack recorded everything, trying to stay invisible. But as he shifted position, a large Krell bumped into him, knocking him into plain view. The room went silent. Everyone turned to stare. The three Shrike assassins fixed their gaze on Jack. "What species is that?" one hissed, its translator struggling with the alien's clicking language. "Human," answered a nearby Luminar, its crystalline body pulsing with alarm. "From Earth." The effect was immediate and unexpected. The Shrikes exchanged glances, their posture changing from dominant to defensive. Without explanation, they turned and left the establishment. Other criminals followed, the gathering breaking up in minutes. Jack made his way back to the meeting point, confused but alive. Commander Zorn waited, his four eyes wide with surprise. "You returned," he said, "and the gathering dispersed? Why?" "I don't know," Jack replied. "But when they heard I was human, the Shrikes left immediately. Why would they do that?" "Commander," Zorn looked uncomfortable. "There are stories," he said reluctantly, "about what happened when the Syndicate tried to establish operations on a remote human colony. Only one Shrike returned. It never spoke of what happened, but it never took another contract involving humans." Jack stared at the alien commander. "What exactly do they think we are?" "What you are," Zorn replied, "is something the galaxy has, rarely seen before. And the deadliest killers in space have apparently learned to fear it." Jack sat with Olivia in their quarters, reviewing the footage from his mission. The image of the Shrike assassins retreating played again on the screen. "I still don't understand," Jack said. "Why would they be afraid of humans?" Olivia tapped on her tablet, bringing up research she had been doing. "I think I'm starting to figure it out. Look at this data I've been collecting from the Collective's biology archives." She showed Jack a comparison chart of various species. According to this, the average galactic species can survive a temperature range of about 20 degrees. We can handle over 100 degrees. Most species have an endurance measured in minutes for intense activity. Humans can run for hours. And our healing abilities, what takes us weeks would take them months or years if they healed at all. Jack stared at the data. "So we really are tougher than most of them." "Jack, we're terrifying to them," Olivia said. "What we consider a normal human is like a super soldier to most species in the Collective. And they've only seen regular civilians so far, not our actual soldiers." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Ambassador Miller. "Both of you report to the embassy immediately. We have a situation." When they arrived, they found the human embassy in chaos. Security officers moved quickly through the halls. Commander Zorn was there, speaking urgently with a group of human officials. Ambassador Miller pulled them aside. "Someone broke into the embassy last night. They got past all our security systems, both human and collective." "Was anything taken?" Jack asked. Miller's face grew grim. "They took me." Jack and Olivia exchanged confused looks. "I don't understand," Olivia said. "You're right here. DNA sample," Commander Zorn explained. "They took biological material from the ambassador's quarters, hair, skin cells, enough to create a perfect clone for voice and DNA verification. By collective law, she is considered kidnapped." "There's more," Miller added. "They left a message. The Shadow Syndicate wants us to withdraw human support from all anti-syndicate operations. If we don't, they'll use my genetic material to bypass security and assassinate key collective leaders, making it look like humans did it." "How long do we have?" Jack asked. 3 days, Miller replied. Commander Zorn called an emergency meeting of the Security Council. Representatives from all major collective species attended. The large chamber buzzed with nervous conversation. "The situation is grave," Zorn began. "For the first time, the Syndicate has directly targeted a diplomatic mission. This threatens the stability of the entire collective." A Luminar representative spoke up. "Where is the ambassador now?" "Based on our intelligence," Zorn replied, The Syndicate has taken the genetic material to their fortress on the volcanic moon of Thar. It is their most secure facility. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Jack had heard of Thar, a hellish moon with rivers of molten rock and a toxic atmosphere. The Syndicate's fortress there was said to be impregnable. "We must negotiate," a Vex representative insisted. "The fortress has defenses that have repelled military forces for decades. No rescue is possible." Jack stood up. "We'll get her back." The chamber went silent. "Lieutenant Howard," Zorn said carefully, "I understand your loyalty to your ambassador, but Thar is a death trap. The gravity is 1.3 times that of your Earth. The atmosphere is toxic. Surface temperatures approach 150 degrees in your measurement system." "Sounds like a warm day in Arizona," Jack replied, remembering the desert training he had undergone. "We've survived worse." After the meeting, Jack assembled a small team. Olivia insisted on coming for her scientific expertise. 2 other humans volunteered. Kelly Martinez, a former combat medic, and Ryan Phillips, an engineer with demolitions experience. To everyone's surprise, Commander Zorn also volunteered. "You're not human," Jack pointed out. "This will be much harder for you." "I am curious," Zorn admitted. "I want to see what Deathworlders are truly capable of." Their approach to Thar was unconventional. Rather than attempting to breach the fortress directly, which would trigger automated defenses, they landed 30 miles away in a valley of volcanic vents. Their ship could only drop them off. The atmosphere was too corrosive for it to remain. "The air is breathable for humans with these filters," Olivia explained, handing out specialized masks. "But the toxin levels mean we can only take them off for about 3 minutes at a time." Commander Zorn wore a full environmental suit that hissed and whirred as it processed the poisonous atmosphere. The humans wore only light protective clothing, their masks, and carried minimal equipment to move faster. The journey began harshly. The higher gravity made every step harder. Hot winds blasted them with volcanic ash. But while Zorn struggled, the humans moved with determination. "How are you doing this?" Zorn asked when they paused near a ridge of black glass-like rock. "This isn't so bad," Kelly said, checking her medical supplies. "I did a desert marathon once that was worse." They encountered their first obstacle when a wide river of molten rock blocked their path. The heat was intense enough that Zorn's suit began to warn of temperature limits. "We'll have to go around," Zorn said. "My suit can't handle that heat." For more than a few seconds, Jack studied the terrain. "Going around will add hours to our journey. There's a narrow point about 50 meters ahead. We can jump it." Zorn's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Jump over molten rock? Impossible." But one by one, the humans did exactly that. They backed up, ran at full speed, and leapt across the glowing, orange river. Even with the higher gravity, their Earth-evolved muscles were powerful enough to clear the gap. Zorn watched in amazement. "No wonder the Shrikes fear you," he muttered, before reluctantly allowing the humans to help him cross using a makeshift harness. As they got closer to the fortress, they encountered another challenge. A cloud of toxic gas vented from a fissure, blocking their path. Zorn's suit could filter it, but the humans' simple masks would be overwhelmed. "We'll have to wait for the wind to change," Zorn suggested. "No time," Jack said. He looked at his team. 3 minutes without air, remember? We run through on a single breath." Before Zorn could protest, the humans removed their masks, took deep breaths, and sprinted through the dense cloud of poison gas. On the other side, they replaced their masks, coughing slightly but otherwise unharmed. 3 minutes without breathing, Zorn said when he joined them. Any other species would be dead. They reached a ridge overlooking the fortress by nightfall. The massive structure was built into the side of a volcano, its black walls reflecting the glow of lava flows around it. Guard posts and sensor arrays dotted the perimeter. Their security is focused on repelling ships and heavy weapons, Ryan observed, studying the fortress through binoculars. They don't expect anyone to come on foot across the surface. As they prepared to approach under cover of darkness, they were ambushed by a syndicate patrol. 6 guards with energy weapons opened fire from behind rock formations. The humans scattered, taking cover. Ryan was hit in the arm, the energy blast burning through his protective clothing. But instead of being incapacitated, he merely grimaced and returned fire with his own weapon. "How are you still fighting?" Zorn asked in amazement. "That wound would disable most species." "It's just a burn," Ryan replied, applying a medical patch that Kelly handed him. "I can still shoot." The firefight was brief and one-sided. The humans moved with speed and coordination that the guards couldn't match. Within minutes, all 6 were down. As they bound the guards, Jack noticed something strange. The prisoners seemed terrified more than the situation warranted. "They're talking about us," Olivia said, her translator picking up their whispers. "They're calling us the unkillable ones from the Death Planet." Word of their approach had spread. By the time they reached the outer walls of the fortress, they found guard posts abandoned and doors left unlocked. Many of the Syndicate's forces had fled rather than face the humans. Jack looked at his team, then at the fortress entrance. "Let's go get our ambassador's DNA back." Zorn shook his head in wonder. "Now I understand why experienced killers flee when Deathworlders show up." The fortress interior was eerily quiet as Jack led his team through dark corridors. Emergency lights cast red shadows on black metal walls. They encountered no resistance, only signs of hasty evacuation, dropped weapons, abandoned posts, and doors left open. "I don't understand," Commander Zorn said, his environmental suit whirring as they moved deeper into the facility. "The Syndicate employs the deadliest fighters in the galaxy. Why would they run?" "Fear is universal," Kelly replied, checking around a corner with her weapon ready. "Even predators run when they meet something they don't understand." They reached a central security room. Ryan quickly accessed the computer systems. "I found it," he said after a few minutes. "The biological material is being kept in a lab 3 levels down, but there's something else." He pointed to a screen showing a large chamber. "They're holding prisoners there, dozens of them." Jack looked at the screen. "Hostages? Likely victims for organ harvesting," Zorn explained grimly. "The Syndicate supplies black market medical facilities throughout the sector. We can't leave them," Olivia said firmly. Jack nodded. "New plan. Ryan and I will get the ambassador's DNA. Olivia, Kelly, and Zorn free the prisoners and get them to the landing zone. We'll need a bigger extraction ship anyway." They split up, moving through the fortress with caution despite the lack of resistance. Occasionally, they found small groups of Syndicate members who had been too slow to evacuate. Most surrendered immediately upon seeing the humans. Jack and Ryan descended to the laboratory level. The air grew hotter, the walls vibrating slightly from the volcanic activity beneath the fortress. They found the lab behind a heavy security door. "This will take time to hack," Ryan said, examining the lock. Jack studied the door frame, then braced himself against the wall. With a grunt of effort, he drove his boot into the metal beside the lock. The frame bent slightly. He kicked again, and again, the metal giving way more each time. Ryan watched in amazement. "The gravity here is higher than Earth, and you're still doing that?" "Adrenaline," Jack said between kicks. "Amazing what the human body can do when it needs to." With a final powerful kick, the door frame bent enough for them to force the door open. Inside, they found a sterile lab with equipment they didn't recognize. In a sealed container on a central table was a small vial containing hair and skin samples. "That's it," Jack said, carefully taking the container. "Let's go help the others." Meanwhile, Olivia, Kelly, and Zorn had reached the prisoner holding area. Unlike the rest of the fortress, this section was still guarded. 4 Shrike assassins stood outside the main door, their barbed limbs ready. "We cannot defeat 4 Shrikes," Zorn whispered as they observed from a hidden position. "Even one is deadly to most species." Kelly checked her weapon. "We need a distraction." Olivia thought for a moment, then removed her mask. "I have an idea," she said, her voice strained as she held her breath. She took out a small device from her pack, a portable analyzer she used for scientific work. With quick movements, she modified it to emit a high-pitched sound, then slid it across the floor toward the Shrikes. The noise caught their attention. As they moved to investigate, Kelly leaped from cover and fired her weapon. The first shot hit a Shrike in what appeared to be a joint, causing it to stumble. The second shot missed as the other shrikes scattered. What followed was chaos. The shrikes moved with incredible speed, their barbed limbs slashing through the air. But Kelly and Olivia were faster in the higher gravity than the shrikes expected. They dodged and weaved, firing their weapons with precision. Commander Zorn remained in cover, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. He had seen trained military units fall to a single shrike. Yet these humans were holding their own against 4. One shrike managed to scratch Kelly's arm with its poisoned barb. Zorn expected her to collapse immediately. Shrike toxin was lethal to most species within seconds. Instead, Kelly grimaced, switched her weapon to her other hand, and continued fighting. "How are you still standing?" Zorn called out. "The toxin burns like hell," Kelly shouted back. "But our livers can handle worse." The fight ended when Ryan and Jack arrived, adding their firepower to the battle. The remaining shrikes fled deeper, into the fortress, leaving their wounded behind. Kelly examined her wound as Olivia replaced her mask, taking deep breaths of filtered air. "The toxin's giving me a headache," Kelly admitted, "but I'm metabolizing it. Should be clear in an hour or so." "You're immune to shrike poison?" Zorn asked incredulously. "Not immune," Kelly corrected. "Just resistant. Human livers are pretty good at breaking down toxins." They freed the prisoners, a diverse group of aliens who had been captured for various reasons. Many were ill or injured. Some had been in captivity for months. They looked at the humans with the same mix of fear and awe that Jack had grown used to. As they led the freed prisoners through the fortress, an alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "Self-destruct sequence," Ryan translated, from a wall display. "They're going to blow up the whole fortress rather than let us take it." "How much time?" Jack asked. 15 minutes. They quickened their pace, helping the weaker prisoners along. The route to the surface was longer than expected, with some passages blocked by security doors. Ryan worked to bypass them while Jack and Kelly physically forced open the ones they could. With 5 minutes remaining, they reached the surface exit, only to find it sealed by a massive blast door. "The controls are fried," Ryan said after examining the panel. "Manual override won't work." Jack looked at the door, then at the frightened prisoners behind them. "We need to open it. Now." He moved to one side of the door where hydraulic pistons controlled its movement. With a deep breath, he gripped one piston and pulled. Muscles strained, veins stood out on his forehead, but the pistons slowly began to move. "Impossible," whispered a Luminar prisoner. "The pressure in those systems." Ryan quickly joined Jack, gripping another piston. Olivia and Kelly took positions at the others. Together, the 4 humans pulled against machinery designed to withstand volcanic eruptions. Slowly, inch by inch, the door began to rise. Commander Zorn and some of the stronger prisoners wedged debris underneath to keep it from closing again. 2 minutes until detonation," Ryan warned, his voice strained with effort. With a final surge of strength, the humans raised the door high enough for everyone to escape. They hurried the prisoners through, then ran from the fortress across the volcanic landscape. They had barely made it 100 meters when the ground shook violently. Looking back, they saw the fortress collapsing in on itself as explosions tore through its structure. A cloud of ash and debris rushed toward them. "Down!" Jack shouted. Everyone dropped to the ground as the shockwave passed over them, carrying hot ash and rock fragments. When they stood again, coughing and brushing off debris, the fortress was gone, replaced by a smoking crater that quickly began to fill with molten lava. Commander Zorn stared at the destruction, then at the humans who had made their escape possible. "In all my years of service," he said slowly, "I have never seen anything like what you 4 just did. No wonder the Syndicate fears humans." Jack helped a limping prisoner as they continued toward the extraction point. "We did what anyone would do." "That's what makes you terrifying," Zorn replied. "What you consider ordinary, the rest of the galaxy considers impossible." As they reached the ridge where their extraction ship would meet them, Jack looked back at the ruined fortress. The Shadow Syndicate had just learned a costly lesson about underestimating humans, but he wondered what would happen when the galaxy at large truly understood what Deathworlders were capable of. Would they be welcomed as powerful allies? or feared as potential conquerors. The extraction ship appeared in the toxic sky above them, its lights piercing the swirling ash clouds. Jack signaled with a flare, then turned to help more prisoners toward the landing zone. Whatever the future held, today they had shown the galaxy something important. Humans protect their own, and they never leave anyone behind, not even aliens. They had just met. As the ship landed, Zorn placed a four-fingered hand on Jack's shoulder. The Syndicate will not forget this defeat, but neither will the Collective forget what humans did here today. Jack nodded. Let's hope they remember the right parts. 3 weeks after the mission to Thar, Jack stood at a viewport on Nexus Station watching ships come and go. The station felt different now. So did his place in it. There you are, Olivia said as she joined him. The ambassador's looking for you. Jack nodded. How are the former prisoners doing? Most have returned to their homeworlds. A few are still in medical recovery. Olivia leaned against the viewport rail. The Luminar we rescued has been telling everyone how you and Ryan forced open that blast door. He's become quite the storyteller. Jack smiled slightly. Exaggerating, no doubt. Actually, understating it, Olivia replied. I showed him the door. Specifications from the fortress data Ryan downloaded. Those hydraulics were designed to withstand pressures of a volcanic eruption. What we did should have been physically impossible. Before Jack could respond, his communication device buzzed. Ambassador Miller needed them in the main conference room immediately. They found the conference room filled with representatives from dozens of species. Ambassador Miller stood at the center, alongside Commander Zorn and several high-ranking collective officials. As Jack and Olivia entered, a strange thing happened. The room fell silent, and many of the aliens bowed their heads slightly in what appeared to be a gesture of respect. Lieutenant Howard, Dr. Bennett, Ambassador Miller greeted them formally. The Collective Security Council has requested this special session to address recent events. The head of the council, a tall being with silvery skin, stepped forward. The destruction of the Syndicate fortress on Thar has sent shockwaves through the criminal networks of 17 star systems. For the first time in centuries, the Shadow Syndicate is in retreat. Commander Zorn added, 3 major worlds previously under Syndicate control have successfully rebelled. Their operations have been disrupted across the sector. And it's because of you, Ambassador Miller said to Jack and Olivia. The security footage from the fortress has spread throughout the collective. Jack looked confused. What security footage? A screen activated, showing images from inside the fortress. Jack saw himself kicking through the lab door, Olivia holding her breath for minutes while setting up the distraction, Kelly continuing to fight despite being poisoned by a shrike. All 4 humans forcing open the massive blast door. The Syndicate's own security system transmitted this before the fortress was destroyed, Zorn explained. They intended it as a warning to their forces. Instead, it has become something else entirely. A symbol, the council had said, of what humanity brings to the collective. Jack shifted uncomfortably under the attention. We just did what needed to be done. That is precisely the point, Zorn said. What you consider ordinary actions, the rest of the galaxy sees as extraordinary. No other species could have accomplished what you did on Thar. Ambassador Miller stepped forward with a data pad. The Council has proposed new trade agreements with Earth, technology exchanges, cultural programs, military cooperation, terms far more favorable than what we initially received. And there's something else, Olivia added, looking at her own data pad. Requests from 17 worlds for human advisors to help train their security forces. Jack raised an eyebrow. They want us to teach them how to fight? They want to learn from Deathworlders, Zorn corrected. Not just fighting techniques, but your adaptability, your problem-solving under pressure. Your species evolved on a world that tried to kill you at every turn. That created something unique in the galaxy. The meeting continued with discussions of humanity's new place in the collective. Jack listened, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about how quickly things had changed. 3 weeks ago, aliens whispered behind their backs. Now they were sought-after allies. After the meeting, Jack and Olivia walked through the stations, Main promenade. The whispers and stares continued, but they carried notes of respect rather than mere curiosity. Did you see the report from Earth? Olivia asked. Applications to the space service have tripled since news of Thar reached home. Jack nodded. And I heard the Syndicate has officially declared all human territories off limits to their operatives. Smart move on their part, Olivia said with a small smile. They stopped at a viewport overlooking a docking bay where a human ship had just arrived. Fresh personnel for the expanding human presence on Nexus Station. Men and women who had no idea they would be viewed as extraordinary simply for being human. Commander Zorn approached them, his four-armed salute now familiar. I have been assigned as liaison to the new human security force, he said. If you are willing to accept, Lieutenant Howard, the Council wishes you to lead it. Jack looked surprised. Me? I'm just a soldier, not a commander. You are a Deathworlder who has earned the respect of the galaxy, Zorn replied simply, including mine. As Zorn left them to consider the offer, a small alien child from a species Jack didn't recognize approached them cautiously. Its parent waited nervously nearby. The child looked up at Jack with large, curious eyes. Is it true you can break metal with your hands? It asked through a translator. Jack crouched down to the child's level. Only sometimes when I really need to. Humans aren't that different from your people. We just grew up on a world that made us tough. My parent says your world tries to kill you every day, but you never give up, the child said with wonder. Jack smiled gently. That's true of most worlds in different ways. The secret isn't being stronger or faster. It's working together and never giving up. As the child returned to its parent, Olivia touched Jack's arm. Very diplomatic, not mentioning that we can hold our breath for minutes, survive toxins that would kill them instantly, and endure gravity that would crush their bones. They'll learn about us in time, Jack replied, and we'll learn about them. That's what this is all about, isn't it? Finding our place among the stars. On the main communication screen above the promenade, news played from across the collective. The Shadow Syndicate was in disarray. Worlds previously under their control were declaring independence, and applications from various species to visit Earth were at an all-time high, despite warnings about the dangerous conditions. We've changed the galaxy, Olivia said softly. Just by being who we are. Jack watched the news, thinking about the journey ahead. Humanity had discovered they were Deathworlders in a galaxy of more fragile beings. They could use that fear to dominate, or that respect to build something better. What do you think happens next? Olivia asked. Jack looked at the stars beyond, the station. We show them that Deathworlders aren't just tough. We're compassionate too. We protect those who need protection. We build rather than destroy. On a screen nearby, footage played again from the Thar mission. Humans risking their lives to save alien prisoners they had never met before. Perhaps that more than their strength or endurance was what truly set them apart. The Shadow Syndicate had learned why experienced killers flee when Deathworlders show up. But the rest of the galaxy was learning something more important, why having Deathworlders as allies might be the best thing that ever happened to them.